And last night's game that we wanted to talk about was the Celtics beating the Hornets 113 to 102. The Hornets looked incredible all the way up until they didn't. They kind of dominated the first 2.5 quarters of the game. I shouldn't say dominated because they never pulled away by that much, but they were in control. They looked like they could score against the Celtics defense, and they had a lot of things going for them. But it all turned legs at the end of the third quarter. This is what happens with good teams. They know exactly the moment to throw the kill shot. 13-3 to end the quarter for the Celtics. They were down, all of a sudden they're up, and it turned into an extended 29-10 run. This is the rhythm of this game was that it was a phenomenal game. Hornets looked great, and then in a 5-minute stretch, the game was over, and the Celtics had won it and just had to run out the clock.
Yeah, I think both of those things can be true on the same night. I think for Charlotte, you saw a team that continues to represent what we've been talking about and watching for quite a while. They took it to the Celtics. They took it to them right from the beginning of the game. LaMelo Ball was incredible to start the game. You know, he comes out and he's one of those guys that can dip his toe in the water early and he's capable of putting on a show. And he did for pretty much the first 3 quarters of the game, certainly the first 2.5 quarters. Like they had no answer for LaMelo Ball, but they came out and they operated their offense exactly how they do every night, even against this top shelf defense, a team that doesn't make mistakes. They don't give up points in the paint. Their communication defensively, the Celtics, is as good as anybody in this league. They didn't have an answer for Charlotte's tempo and pace and how quickly they were getting into their sets off quick ball screens, LaMelo Ball going off early. Excuse me. And it stayed that way for most of the game. And then you saw why the Celtics are now a team that have captured the imagination of a lot of people thinking this is going to be the team that you see in the NBA Finals, because they do have this gear. Defensively, they can kick in, and the way that they can hit you with a barrage of offense in a very short period of time. They did that to basically end it, get separation, and then it wasn't really dramatic over the last 6 minutes of the game because of what Boston did to close the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter. So both things can be true on the same night. I think you saw the best version of Charlotte, and then you saw the best version of Boston. And as it turned out, the best version of Boston was just more than the best version of Charlotte could muster on this night. And that's why, for me, the Celtics, when you watch them, it's such a consistent product of what you're getting. And Jaylen Brown was incredible in this game to help earn this. And it continues, the season he's had. Last night for me was another one of those like exclamation point games that he had, and his performance in turning this game offensively really was the difference between the two teams.
I think I 100% agree with you on the JB part of this. And the interesting thing is 43 minutes for him last night, 39 from Tatum. And part of this is I don't know if all those minutes were needed. Jaylen Brown did not come out of the game in the second half. He played all 24 minutes. And so I'm watching that, and I'm kind of thinking that's curious. They were comfortably up for a while. You probably could have afforded to give him a rest. I almost feel like this was a playoff ramp up. You know, you want to go out there. The Celtics are locked in, I believe, to that 2 seed. You know, their situation here is looking pretty comfortable. I think they are locked in. Is that correct? Yeah, I think they are. And so now you look at it and say, why do you play that many games? It might be the last chance to, have a game that means something and to get ready for the playoffs. So you give them that kind of workload. I mean, what do you make of that? Both of those guys playing 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's surprising. Surprising. You just don't see teams typically do it. And whether they won this game or not, I mean, everybody kind of pretty much resigned themselves to the fact it's going to be the 2 seed. They're not going to get caught. They're not catching Detroit. They're going to be the 2 seed. And maybe part of it plays into, like, you're playing this team that's been really hot second half of the season. You might see this team in the first round of the playoffs.
That's a good point.
Too. It's possible. So like, I think maybe important to kind of, defend them with your guys and how you're going to guard this team to show that you can operate against them, because Charlotte has been really good on both ends of the floor now for like half a season. It's not just about their offense, which is flashy and like fun. Their defense has been exceptional too. So maybe that plays into it, because you typically don't see teams extending themselves when it's almost a foregone conclusion they're going to be locked into a certain seed, to where you have your top 2 guys playing, basically 40 minutes apiece. You don't really see that very often.
The other note I have here, Jordan Walsh, my guy, made a huge impact on LaMelo Ball. And I think some of this is there's no Kobe White in this game. And for as great as Charlotte is, Kobe White completes the rotation because he gives you another lead ball handler, and you can always have one of those guys on the court. Obviously, you have Concanipple. It didn't work out. Without him in this one, the Hornets fell off a cliff, and you could see that they were rudderless in those minutes. But I also credit Jordan Walsh because LaMelo, for as great as he played, and some of this was he just hit some really tough shots. He had a step back that was like a 40-foot step back in this game. That was just an insane shot to take, and he makes it. But Walsh coming in just made a bunch of high-impact plays. And to do that without, it's not like he got this normal rotation. He kind of gets thrown into the game late and makes a big impact to me. It's noteworthy.
No, it definitely was. And I think that one of the differences you saw when this game started to get away from Charlotte and Walsh had a assignment of guarding him, you saw a guy that was doing a pretty good job of chasing him over the top of the screens that were set far down the floor, that early in the game, he was coming off of those screens and he was walking into no traffic and he was walking into these 3-point shots. What Jordan Walsh was able to do was navigate around those screens, avoid the contact, stay close enough to him. A couple times he had deflections from behind off the dribble, but other times he was right there, like this presence over his shoulder as he was coming off, so that he couldn't just pull up. He had to continue to get into the lane and then try to figure out what he was going to do. The game was really simplified for LaMelo Ball to start this game. And that's run ball screen, and he's the type of scorer that his first option when you run a ball screen, if you're a scorer, is look for yourself first. That's always option one. You come off a ball screen, there's a specific reason, because you're trying to create a situation where you've got an open look, whether it's downhill or pull up and shoot the ball. He didn't have any decisions to make in the first half of this game. Everything was available to him coming off the screens. That changed when they put Jordan Walsh on him. You now started to muddy the water a little bit coming off of those screens where now he had to make other decisions, and it affected the game. So give him credit because he played, only 18 minutes in this game, but they were as impactful as just about any 18 minutes in this game by anybody because of what he did defensively, his hustle work on the boards, which he always does a good job there. But I thought it was a factor in the game and why they were able to turn it. And he also, contributed 4 for 4 from the field. That's almost like a bonus with Jordan Walsh. I think for me, it's about effort, defense. He's a good rebounder for his position. He's got good size. Like those things fit. But when he also contributes situation where you take 4 shots and you go without a miss, that's just gravy for the Celtics.
What else stood out to you about this game? What else was interesting? I got a couple notes, but I'm kind of curious what some of your other big perspectives were.
I think for me, it was the continued development. And another guy we're going to talk about later on in the show, conversation around most improved player and some of the candidates and who some of these guys are. I thought Keita in this game
was great.
Was another guy that and we're talking about this, like the tone of the award has changed. Like who's eligible for the award even in terms of like, I'm going to open my mind to every possibility. It used to be like guys like Keita. It was like tailor-made for a guy like that, like basically a reserve, limited minutes. It's sometimes last year, like not even in the rotation for the Boston Celtics. And now he turns into their starting center. And I just like, he's such a factor because of his size and he's so active that now when you watch them, you're almost like, man, they found their starting center for like a long time to come because he fits perfectly with how they want to play offensively. Yes. You don't have to run anything for him. He cleans up lobs. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's got nice touch around the rim. So I think for me, just the impact of Keita, I kept noticing him as I was watching the game. He was such an omnipresent force the entire time. And it might not lead to like these massive numbers every night, but it's just the look of their team because they've got guards and forwards that are going to do all of the shooting. And then they've got to have somebody in the middle that affects the game without really ever having to call anything for him. That's exactly what Keita does. So I thought he was just so big and so good in this game. And again, another guy that I think is going to go unmentioned probably in the most improved player award. And I think this is the kind of guy I look at and say he came from a reserve. You don't even know if he's going to last in the league to a starting center on a team that potentially could win a championship or get to the NBA Finals. Incredible.
Yeah, it is funny to think of that. I would call that improvement. I would call that an improved player when you become like the staple of a championship contender. Here's the thing about Keita, and it's true of Walsh as well. They make the game tough for other people because they're going to go hard every time. They're going to a chance they only have 10% at this little tip in, they're going to go for it. The screen that's a little bit high, they're going to run it and they're going to dive. Like they do all the things that make it when you're guarding them, I have to be locked in and I have to work hard. And if you just look at the personality of the top teams in the league, namely Detroit, Oklahoma City, and Boston, I think they're tough. I think you go into all those games like, this is going to be tough. Even if you feel like you have a good matchup, you have to work. That you just know going into that game, I'm not going to get possessions where I get to kind of just catch my breath and stand in the corner. And for the Celtics, it's the team as a whole, but it's especially those guys, Kata, Walsh, the guys that are just going to make Derek White counts into this, even though he's more of a star. They're just going to make every little time you get on your heels, they're going to make you pay with a loose ball or a rebound or something like that. And I think it's an important trait. I don't think you can say this of all teams. Like there are some teams, even good ones, where you walk in and go, okay, it's going to be a shootout. I'll get some possessions off. It'll be easy. Not Boston, not Detroit, not Oklahoma City.
Great point all the way around. And I think that the thing I like about Boston is I think I would sum them up this way the best. They do not typically contribute to their own demise on a given night because they don't turn the ball over. They do an incredible job protecting the paint. So if you have big-time shooting nights against them, and it happens in this league because of the volume, that can happen. They're not going to be a team that you're going to look at and you're going to ever notice the ease with which people are scoring on them, particularly getting downhill, getting into the lane, and having the best of both worlds. They're just not going to do that. They're so connected defensively with their help on penetration that that's what top teams do. They don't make mistakes when it's their turn to rotate. They make the rotation, and then the back end protects those guys. They don't turn it over. They're excellent in their sprint back the first 3-4 strides in transition, so they don't give up easy stuff on throw-aheads or easy 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s. Because even when they do turn the ball over, which is rare, they sprint back to get ahead of the ball to make you work on that possession. I just got a lot of respect for them. It's a clean team. They're clean. And it's to me, a direct reflection on the job that Mazzulla has done with this group this year.
All right, here's a question I have for you Celtics, though. If we're looking at concerns, there's always a player that in the playoffs that it's a little surprising that they're less impactful than they were in the regular season. And the guy I wonder for Boston on that is Sam Hauser, who, obviously a role player for him. It's not like he's a superstar or anything. But I do wonder if he's the vulnerability in their defense. And last night there was just a stretch where it felt like they were going after Sam Hauser a lot. He ends up only playing 16 minutes. I think he's maybe not important enough for the Celtics to worry about that, but it is a thing that I wonder that he provides this extra spacing and shooting, but is it possible in some matchups it's just every time down the court in the playoffs it's like we know exactly what we're doing when he's on the floor?
I will tell you this. I've watched them a ton this year. I've seen Hauser so much the last couple of seasons. I don't typically feel that way when I watch him play. I don't feel like, man, this is a guy that's going to get attacked. They found the weak link defensively. And part of the reason is because, look, maybe he doesn't have the lateral foot speed of a Jaylen Brown or a Tatum or a Derek White, or even probably a Jordan Walsh. He's got really good size. He's got tremendous IQ defensively for where he's supposed to be. He competes, so he's always playing hard. But then the biggest reason of all, it's what I just said. They don't allow guys to be picked on. That's just not how they're going to operate. They're going to do everything to protect anybody from being on an island. And so I've never really watched them and felt like, yeah, Sam Hauser, that's a guy that is going to be played off the floor to some extent. Because number one, a lot of times because of their switchability, even if he gets switched on because he's guarding the screener and now some top tier offensive player wants to play against him, so many possessions in this league end up leading into another switch at some point for whatever reason. There's another screen set or a guy penetrates, kicks out, and teams rotate out of that differently so you don't even end up on the same guy for an entire possession. I just don't think the Celtics are susceptible to anybody being targeted because how smart they are, how good they navigate those situations, how good Mazzulla is at preparing them for that, their versatility overall with their wings and their guards defensively. So I'm not as worried about that maybe as you might be.
So I walked away from this game feeling good. If I'm the Celtics, I feel good because they were able to withstand a big offensive run in the first half. They were able to adjust, and they were able to get contributions from a lot of guys and win. I feel good. But if I'm Charlotte, do I also feel a little bit good about this potential matchup? I mean, Charlotte right now just wants to get in. It's almost just their whole focus is just get in. But there is a chance that they could be the 8 seed, go into the play-in, win the game, and now you're matched up with the Boston Celtics. So given that this is a possibility, what would you make of a matchup based on what you saw last night? Is this an interesting one for Charlotte, or is this one of the tougher ones that Charlotte could face?
Listen, I think for Charlotte, I think that in some ways they have a mirror image in their style offensively. Like they're so you could get into a situation. I think some teams like that. Like, okay, this is how we want to play. You guys want to play this way too? You know, you kind of fast and free with their early 3-point shooting and stuff. You can get into one of those track meet type games. They're going to take that, and Boston is one of those teams that's going to play that way with you. They beat them once this year, beat pretty handily. I think Charlotte has this cocky swagger of a bunch of young guys that all of a sudden, like overnight, figured this out. And I think they believe no matter who they play, it doesn't matter. Like you have your hands full, and they believe any series they're going into, they're going to believe they're going to win that series. That's how they carry themselves. Yeah. I think it's awesome because, typically you look at these young teams that all of a sudden kind of emerge in front of our eyes. That's what's happened with this team. And you kind of now fast forward to the playoffs and you go, man, playoffs are going to be deer in the headlights, eyes wide open. Like it's going to be so much for them going through it for the first time. Are you with me in that? I don't see that being the case with this team. Like I see them continuing to operate the same way. That doesn't mean I would pick them to beat the Celtics in a best of 7, but I do think that could be one of the more entertaining and fun first round series out there.
Well, I 100% agree. And I love that you brought this up because I think it's a good point. I noticed this when they were in Denver. They blew the doors off of Denver in Denver, maybe 8 weeks ago or so. And that was one of my big takeaways. I'm at the arena and I'm watching them and I'm like, this team is so confident and they have this like very youthful, I don't want to call it arrogance, but just this like lightness to them. Like, they carry themselves like they're having fun and they just believe. So I definitely think that's part of the fun is Charlotte doesn't know like where they belong in the pecking order. In their mind, they could take anybody. So it is a fun trait of theirs, I think. Any final thoughts on this game? Should we move on to the Warriors?
No, let's get